and I'm here today at Chateau Smith Haut Lafitte, which is on the left bank of Bordeaux in the Pessac-Léognan appellation. And I'm joined by none other than Mme Cathiard, the owner herself. And today we are going to be discussing all things green, organic, and the importance of nature and environment to Chateau Smith Haut Lafitte. And we'll be doing this as we go through the Forest of the Senses, which is just opposite. But before we enter into this magical woods, let's find out a little bit more about organic wine growing here. Mme Cathiard.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Florence and I am pleased to meet you, and it's a privilege of receiving the clients of Wine Park.
Thank you very much.
They are always well read and they know wine, and more they appreciate the organic way of driving this vineyard at Smith Haut Lafitte.
So last year you were awarded the certification for organic viticulture, but I know that the whole vineyard has been following organic principles for many years now.
For the last 30 years.
Last 30 years.
Because we bought the last days of 1990, and we tried since the beginning, because I had been brought this way by very organic-minded parents. And of course, we tried maybe too fast, because it was a total disaster in the beginning. You cannot go from a totally chemical vineyard to a totally organic one in just like this. So we show the yields drastically disappearing, and in the end, even sometimes the roots of the old vines were going up, because they had no deep rooting in this beautiful terroir in the soil. So it was a long way.
A long way.
Yes.
So
but we learned.
Exactly, I imagine. So a real journey to get there. 30 years is a very long time. Very interesting. Well, why don't you join us now as we go into this magical and mysterious Eden known as the Forest of the Senses. So the vines here are harvested manually. But I know that hasn't stopped the winery being at the forefront of innovation and high-tech methods in respect with the harmony of traditions. How do you get that right balance between tradition and innovation?
We call our philosophy bio-precision, because we take the best of Mother Nature and the best of technology. For instance, we have two computerized sorting machine, which analyzes each berry by berry, the grapes. We also have the most soft vibrating machines. We use drones and also satellites. 50 square centimeters by 50 square centimeters. We have sent electric impulses in all our terroir. So we master exactly which kind of varietal will be the best to put here when we have to renew the plants, So it's a long job, 30 years on the vineyard, on the premises.
All the time,
but we love it, and we have a very committed and dedicated team, And they are very strong. They work mainly on the white vines.
Okay.
Because the white vines, it's a pronounced slope behind Les Sources de Caudalie, and it's really interesting to have the horses against erosion or compaction, whereas for the red, it's much less interesting.
So here at the Island of Sounds, I really feel that I'm one with nature. It really feels that you can just take the time to be present in the moment and connect with the nature that's surrounding. Is that what you intended at this spot here?
Exactly, because I think you cannot make a great wine if you are not connected with your vines. And we have the great privilege with my husband Daniel of living on the premises of Chateau Smith Haut Lafitte for the last 30 years. And so I shall not say that I know each first name of my vines, but I really feel the connection. And it's such luck to be surrounded by forest. But and forest with not only pines, you know. It's we have 7 type of trees, and that's very precious because it was planted by an old aristocrat who used to give concerts in the 19th century in this forest, and we have renewed the spirit with modern works of art with young artists, but we try to awake the senses of each visitor.
Okay. When we stop here at the lock, it's so peaceful listening to the water gurgling through the stream, and I love that you have this horn here, and you can completely hear the sound of the water amplified in the horn.
Yes.
But do these streams, I believe, have a specific purpose in regulating the water flow? Is that right?
Yes, of course, because we don't want them to make a flood in the classified park of Château Lafitte, which is just behind and which belongs to us also. Not made by us, we add the works of art, you know,
Yes,
to
absolutely.
amplify the... Yes, it's pretty different.
Yeah, you can hear it, but you'll have to
Yes.
come and visit for yourself
Yes.
to experience it. But yes, it
It's
just...
fun. And but it was made in the 19th century by the same aristocrats.
This is such a beautiful, natural wooden sculpture of a centuries-old cork oak tree. Is there a story behind this?
Yes, because it's a multi-century oak tree, and it was struck by a lightning. So I was so sad when it fell. And the biggest piece was this one. It was kind of splintered everywhere. And so we decided to put it up. And fortunately, we have the big machinery from the vineyard because it's very, very heavy.
I can imagine so.
And then I call my friend José Lepièce, who is an artist from Bordeaux, and he made just little fugitive rivers on this, and it's the second sense, you know, you can touch this.
Touch. Yes, absolutely.
You also have a moss garden and the big oak that you can kiss.
Yes.
But it's important to awaken your sense by touching.
This is such an unusual structure. What exactly is it and what does it symbolize?
It's our second passion is contemporary art. So when I found it in Lafitte in Paris, out of Lafitte, I thought it. I saw it in the middle of this special place in the forest.
Yeah.
It's much more beautiful when you come in autumn because all the trees are red. It's old maple trees, you know,
Yes.
and a special kind of trees. And when the sun is playing, I love it because at the same time it's a little frightening and it's also light. So the name of the sculpture is a little pretentious. I told the artist, so I can tell. It's a paradoxical injunction, you know.
Yes.
But that's what we live in our day life, you know, and that's what politics live is every day. They give you injunction, but very often they are paradoxical, you know. And you have to learn with the threatenings, the threats come outside, and the lightness and the protective from inside.
As we stroll here through the woods, I've noticed that there's some badger holes. Is that right? I mean, how many badgers have you got here?
Oh, it's a big family because if you count the holes, there must be almost not a dozen, but almost of them, because they have been here for 20 years, much before we arranged this forest of the senses. And I saw them once in all these years, because they are nocturnal animals, and they are pretty big, and they have very short legs, and they run very fast. And I almost made a big blunder, because I ran after them, and they came into a hole, and then it was winter, and I saw the smoke of their breath, and I was going to take them, and then I saw the teeth, you know, and they have a very razor teeth. So
they were ready to protect their environment.
Oh yes,
Sounds like
it's nice to have an inhabited forest.
Exactly, and to let them to continue to live where their natural environment is. Absolutely. I absolutely love this larger than life size footprint. And I was asking myself, is this giant footprint a metaphor for the impact humans have on the environment?
I think it's rather ambiguous, but you can read it two sides. And many of our installations, small installations, have this double meaning, you know, and we like it. But what I also like is that it's a spontaneous and creative creation of our three young gardeners. They asked my advice. They wanted to make a small work of art on their own, and they did it.
Let's have a little walk down here. I mean, the world we live in and the landscape is constantly changing. And I was really surprised to learn that here, in this exact spot where we're walking through it now, this used to be a beach. And even if that was 23 million years ago, it's just incredible. And I was wondering, because we have 3 fossilized shells here, if they have a certain significance.
Of course they have, because you can see in front of you, it's a place, but now a badger has chosen to live above.
The badger.
But it's a place where all this comes, because in this small stream of water, it's maybe 5 meters down, and you can find remnants of fossilized shells and pieces of fossilized rock that we have put here. Friend Professor Lenoir, who is a specialist in prehistory, who helps us to find all this in our estate.
Wonderful.
And many in our vineyard as well.
Yeah. So this is the barefoot trail, and as you can see, there's so many different elements of nature here, from the different stones to the sand, to the oak, and it's so nice to just feel the natural elements of the earth underneath one's feet. We don't always take the time to walk barefoot and feel this. It's a really nice little walk. Just arrived at Gulliver's Skis, and this is just something we don't expect to find in the middle of a forest, a pair of skis, but I imagine it's a personal reference to your past.
Exactly, because it's a nod to us that the carpenter of the chateau wanted to make, and then he said, we should put a pair of skis, because I met Daniel such a long time ago, half a century ago, in the French national ski team, and we grew up together because we were the only students. So it's a long story, but our couple is solid, maybe because we have 3 lives, you know, the one in skiing at professional level, then business life, because if you don't get one, you are unable to buy a chateau like Smith Haut Lafitte, and then now the wine life, which is by far the longest of the 3, and we enjoyed the 3 of them. And it's Lionel, the owner of the horses, who lives on the premises as well, who has made a binding, you know, with horse artifacts. It's fun. It's a nice tribute. I like it. It's a little private joke.
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely magnificent. We've just arrived in the contemplation hut. What a magnificent place to just come and reflect away from the busyness of everyday life. Not to mention the fantastic view that we have just in front of us.
Yes.
What inspired the contemplation hut, and what exactly is this wooden sculpture that we find just behind us?
Yes, you asked two questions in one.
Yes.
The first one is because if you think of meditation, I think it's a nice place to meditate, to go inside yourself and think over nothing, and
It's important sometimes.
that's important. And just looking at the beautiful landscape of the man of men and women, and also the wild forest behind. And it's very quiet. You just listen to the trees. And the second question is that José Marquez, my favorite artist here, is a man who is able to make the wood sing. And for instance, if he blew some breath in his hands, you hear music from the two sculpted wood.
Incredible.
And above, as he likes Buddhism, and I think it's interesting to have kind of eye, the eye of Buddha,
Yes.
which looks at you.
Yes.
And it's, I don't ask all the people who come to taste my Smith Haut Lafitte wine to meditate before their glass. But I think if you let the wine aerate itself in now the glass are like little decanter, but very often the sommelier have no time, they just pour and they go away even if it's in a decanter. So you have to look at your wine, and this is an invitation to take life on its slow side. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah, so it's nice to have a moment from time to time when you can do that.
Yeah.
We're here at the vat room. I know that you favour a circular economy model, and that this vat room has an ecological approach which is based on positive energy. Can you tell me a little bit more about your unique CO2 recycling model, and also the role of this roof planted cellar?
Yes, it's what we call a stealth cellar because it's under the radar of the site of coming people. It was in a natural carrier. It's vegetal roofs everywhere. And also we have 300 square meters of solar panel, that's a Canadian one. So we are slightly positive in energy. And on top of that, we are unique pioneers in recycling the 20 tons of CO2 that our vats emit just after harvest during the first maturation. We capture this, and we have a complex machinery outside this cellar, which gives us 8 tons of bicarbonate of sodium each year. So we don't know what to do with this. Maybe we have spoken now with people who make spirulina,
Yes.
and they need a lot of bicarbonate. So I think we'll give or we'll sell, or we'll see. We have because but it's interesting for the planet, of course.
Yes.
And now we are very proud because we have been imitated by other chateaux, like Montrose in France,
Yes.
and Davis University came last week to visit us from the States because they want to inspire the big name of Napa Valley in doing this. So
It's great to be a pioneer in this area.
Yes,
to inspire others
we
at the same time.
we were invited at COP21 to speak about this. So it was interesting to speak in front of all the great minister of environment.
It's great to see a French chateau playing such an important role in the
Yes,
in the ecology.
that was my husband's idea, and sometime I am the sheriff because he I said, Daniel, you will get a return on investment in 200 years. But when he convinced me, and I am proud now.
Behind us, we've got this enormous safety pin. And this supposedly represents the generation gap between the different wines.
Yes, it's supposed to be the gap between the old vines that we have. Some are 100 years old in Smith Haut Lafitte. And here it's the cellar for the younger vines of Smith Haut Lafitte. And so it's a generation gap. And if you look attentively, even if you repair the generation gap, it does not work. And as I said, we like to be a little ambiguous or double meaning, and that goes often in family. You try to have your next generation just like you, but fortunately they are not clones. They have their own mentality. But you have to repair all the time and try to polish and try to make things work.
Imagine finding a vine pharmacy here in the middle of the forest, and the herbs are dried here and used in the biodynamic vineyard. Shall we go upstairs and take a look, and you can tell me a bit more?
Of course.
Great.
We have our own plantations, and we produce more and more and more, and we have no room enough, because we need 14 kilos of each plant to make one herbal tea in our huge herbal tea. So we are getting to make everything here now, because we are one of the only chateaux to have this look of having meadows where we cultivate our Achille millefeuille. I don't know to translate, of course, the nettles and the fern and the prel, the horsetail. They are growing naturally. Each has one specificity. For instance, the fern is putting away the bad insects.
Okay.
So that's good. The valerian, we made a big herbal tea with it. So, and you feel the smell, right? Good to prevent the hydric stress of the vine. And that's why it was like this the other day, but now you have almost nothing. And it's useful. Sometimes they mix it with some white clay, and they make a little pulverization, little spray on the vines, and it works well. I think we have really
and some natural remedies
enhanced the strength of our vines. We are so lucky to have so near the city this environment of forest and meadows, and we put just light touch of human care in this, and it works. And our wine, we think, Smith Haut Lafitte wine are more precise, more full with energy, and maybe more honest than they used to be before, when we were going organic one year and then taking what is called bio-friendly products, but you are never sure. Now it's our own compost. It took us more than 5 years to put it into shape with horse and cow manure mixed with our small branches of vines. And after we have our own plants now, and also each lady or man here is tied to its own parcels of vines, and that's much better. You know, during the pandemic, we were always speaking to them, separate by 3 rows of vines, and they like this much better than before, to know their own parcel and kind of compete to see whether the vines are in healthier than the other one. It's good.
good
Yeah,
healthy
yeah.
competition between.
Yes, we like it.
Yes,
This way.
very nice. And you also have outside a scented garden.
Oh yes, we have
Let's
to
go take a
visit.
look at that now.
Yes.
So we're here in the scented garden. What are the different aromas that we can smell here that you use in both your white and red wines?
Yes, you can smell the roses, of course. Now they are a little fading away, but the white roses. You have also le chèvrefeuille. I don't know how to translate, but it's and jasmine.
Yes,
is
jasmine
here.
flower, right?
And you have also the kumquat,
What?
which is
This one?
agrumes, very special. A little spice curry,
The curry,
a plant,
yes.
a plant which
It really has a beautiful, you can really smell the curry.
like curry. You have main de Bouddha, which is a complex aromatic, which kind of exotic plant. So it's in our
wonderful.
wine, you know, we have the first layer of aromas, which is definitely citrus and like kumquat.
Yes.
And then you have a second layer of aromas, which is more sophisticated with white flower like jasmine or chèvrefeuille, and then more exotic flavor like
Like the curry.
or curry. So it's our wine is more complex than the small garden,
Yes.
but you still have a few of the smell you can
Yeah,
feel
we
in
can
our
really
wines.
smell them quite strong. And over
And
here, is
that's
this
the
the
red.
red?
The red, of course, it's a little late for the strawberry, for the blackberries, because we are proud of having the sense of the forest in our wine as well. Balsamic aromas, you know.
Yes.
But we could not put this in the garden. So, of course, the red fruit and black fruit, that's obvious. And you find then most of the red, but you don't find the little flintstone or the balsamic in many, in other than the Great Pessac.
No visit to your vineyard will really be complete without a tasting of your wonderful wine.
Of course.
So I suggest we head back to the winery and maybe have a taste of the wines that are included on this Forest of the Senses tour. Here in the Paradise Cellar, which is just incredible, and here's a selection of the oldest wine for Chateau Smith Haut Lafitte. And this is from
1878. And it's a mouth blonde bottle, of course, at a time when Lafitte was written with one F and one T because it means hill. That's why it stands for quality somewhere, you know. And they spare the label, so the last figure was put by hand. So it lasted for 10 years, the same label. And it was Café Voisin, which was a very smart coffee, like Café de la Paix, you know, which is still in activity, but this one is no more. And at the time, Smith Haut Lafitte was very high rank, just behind Latour of the other Lafitte. So, and then we had a roller coaster, but now it's up again.
What an incredible collection. Amazing to just see this.
Yes. Vines in white, and I choose the Ile de Smith because now it's the time for oyster, for grilled fish, and I think it's maybe more adapted to the food habits of people in summer, you know.
Okay.
Otherwise, I should advise you to try our incredible 2015 Smith Haut Lafitte white. because we were celebrating a quarter of a century of harvest in our vines for us, and the 650 years of this Château Haut Lafitte, because George Smith came only in the 18th century, but Mr Mrs was there in the 14th century, so it's a very old chateau.
Yes.
But
so this is the perfect summer accompaniment to.
Yes. We want to test the Ile de Smith, which is perfect wine. If you go on the Bassin d'Arcachon, it's one of the favorites over there. You find it in all the restaurants because it's so intense and pure. Even if it's a so-called second wine, I don't like this term. I prefer younger wines. And
yes.
It's straight. It's like an arrow and very aromatic as well. Difficult to speak.
Yes.
Today it was more focused on how we try to put the best of Mother Nature in our bottles.
Yes, absolutely. To see your different approach.
But I think great wines speak for themselves, and
True.
it's still
Very
maybe
true.
more true with our red. It's an 11 Chateau Smith Haut Lafitte, and I love this wine because it was not ready to drink until 6 months ago. Why? Because the 11 is a strong wine. It was a little in the shadow of the 2010, which is a huge wine, which I don't consider drinking now if you have not decanted it since the morning.
Okay.
But the 11, after some aeration, will tell you why Smith Haut Lafitte try and success in its best in so-called not smaller vintages, which in fact it's not small. It's a perfect wine to begin to drink 9 years after we produce it, but it will stay for more than 20 years. And you smell the black fruits rather than the red. You have the red also, but it's rather black. Color is really dark. It's still very, very young. And I'm sure you will feel the balsamic and the spicy and the flintstone taste in the aftermath.
Balsamic, yes.
And I like the way the tannins are polished and interconnected very tightly together on a long, long finish. Now we don't make any more blockbuster wines like we tried to do in 1993, you see, just to say hello. We have been here for 3 years and nobody has still noticed us. That was just testing, and since 1995 we are more people of finish, of very subtle, complex, sophisticated length and aftermath.
Thank you so much for having us here today and giving us this personal tour of the forest of the senses and the wine tasting at the end. It's so interesting to find out more about your approach and how you aim to protect and the ecosystem that is around you as you develop your wines here.
Sorry for my poor English, but
no, it's been
I tried my best and I enjoyed it. You know, it's like holidays for me because I love walking in my vineyard. That's where I'm queen of my small world.
Yes, absolutely.
And sharing my passion.
Yes, well, I completely can feel your passion of being here today. It's very
and all my team is the same. Sometimes maybe more focus on technical explanation, but everybody shares the same obsession for quality into every detail, because that was my great wine.
Absolutely.